Hey, Hockey Nuts, Wayne here. If you have been a listener to our podcast, you know that we don't just talk NHL hockey here at the Hockey Nuts. We like to talk about other leagues and other regions, levels of hockey. Just still hockey, but just at different levels. With that in mind, I've decided to create a video that talks about college hockey this week. So basically, if you follow college hockey, you know that all the teams in Division I are heading into their postseason activities. And some of this conferences have already begun their conference tournaments, and other conferences are starting up this week. So with that in mind, I decided we would be time to take a look at all the conference tournaments going on and get you updated as to what's going on in the world of college hockey in terms of conference tournaments, because now is the time of year where teams are beginning to get eliminated from play. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at yet another spreadsheet that I've designed, and this shows us all of the brackets that are going on around the college hockey world. So, and we all like brackets, don't we? All right, so here we are. Now, what this spreadsheet is basically all of the college hockey conferences. This one's Hockey East, and I've got ECAC here. I've got Atlantic Hockey here, Big Ten, NCHC, WCHA, and then finally the big one at the end is the NCAA tournament. And the way the college hockey world works is generally, in most cases, with every conference except for one, and we'll get to it, every team in the conference makes the conference tournament. And in all 6 conferences, the winner of the conference tournament gets an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament, regardless of record. So that essentially means that every team in Division I college hockey at this point still has a shot at winning the national championship. Whether or not they've won every game or lost every game or somewhere in between throughout the season, once the college hockey tournaments, conference tournaments begin, everybody's got a shot. Now, there is one conference where not everybody makes the conference tournament, and we'll get to that. So those 2 teams are already eliminated. But in every other conference, every team makes the tournament. So every team has a legitimate shot at winning the national championship of college hockey. Whether that's realistic or not is probably debatable. But anyway, so let's get started looking at all of the college hockey tournaments going on as of right now. All right, starting with Hockey East. I have the Hockey East tournament bracket here, and I actually had to change it a little bit because I realized I made a mistake. I thought it was a straight-up bracket where it was, 1 versus 12, or 1 versus 8, 4 versus 5, 6 versus 3, 8 versus 7 versus 2. But what I found out after the fact, and this is actually take 2 of the video, is the Hockey East Conference reseeds after the first round. So with that in mind, let's take a look. Round 1 included the bottom 6 teams in the conference. So the 6 seed Maine played the number 7 seed New Hampshire, 11 seed New Hampshire, sorry. Number 7 UMass Lowell played number 10 Merrimack, and number 8 UMass played number 9 Vermont. And all of the games, these were best of 3 series, and all the games took place at the home rink of the higher seeded team. So in this case, UMass Lowell versus Merrimack, the games were at UMass Lowell. And in that case, Merrimack actually came out with the win. So big upset in this series right here, and it was a sweep win too. Both games were close, though. It was a 2-1, 3-2 games. So Merrimack advances on. And because they're the lowest seeded team that advanced on, bit of a spoiler there, they actually end up playing the highest remaining seed, which in this case is Boston College. So Merrimack will advance on to play Boston College. Now, looking at the next one, number 6 seed Maine plays the number 11 seed New Hampshire. Now, this number in parentheses, just so you know, is the ranking at the U.S. College Hockey Online poll. which is a poll of, I think it's coaches and writers and such. But if you went to uscollegehockeyonline.com, you would be able to figure out what exactly entails in the poll or who gets to vote. But anyway, Maine is sitting 23rd in that poll in terms of voting points. So, and then any team without a number in parentheses is completely unranked. So in this case, Maine hosted New Hampshire. Maine came away with the win. I watched both of those games. They were actually close games. This one is the first game was 4-1, but Maine scored 2 empty netters. So the game was really close right down to the end. And then the same thing in game 2. Maine held on for a 3-2 win in that one. So Maine gets the sweep, and they move on to play Providence, the number 3 seed. And the last game of the first round was UMass Amherst hosting Vermont. And in that one actually went all 3. And UMass won game 1, Vermont won game 2. And then UMass Amherst comes away with a 5-1 win in game 3 in that one. So they advance on to play Northeastern. So the 4 host sites for the next round that's coming up this weekend is Boston College, Boston University, who's hosting Connecticut, Providence, who's hosting Maine, and Northeastern, who's hosting Amherst. So, interesting note on this one, 3 of the 4 sites are right in the city of Boston. So, if you are a college hockey fan, you want to take in some college hockey games, just fly to the city of Boston, and there will be, up to 9 games going on right in that city. So, because all of these are best of 3 series. So that's where we stand in Hockey East. You've got number 1 BC against number 10 Merrimack, number 4 BU against number 5 Connecticut, number 6 Maine is at number 3 Providence, and number 8 UMass Amherst is at number 2 Northeastern. All right, let's take a look at the ECAC, shall we? That's another conference that is in the East Coast. Obviously, Hockey East is in East Coast Conference as well. And their tournament runs similar to Hockey East in that there are teams outside the top 8 that have to play, there are teams that have to play to get into the quarterfinal in this round here. And then we have a quarterfinal round, a semifinal round, and so on. And again, like Hockey East, the first round, the games are played at the host school of the higher seeded team. And then also, like Hockey East, the teams reseed at the end of the first round. So this tournament looked different when it started, but this is how it has turned out so far. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the round 1 games. Yale and Quinnipiac, the hosts. These games were played at Yale because Yale's the higher seed. But Quinnipiac came away with a 5-1, 4-1 win. So Quinnipiac is the one that advances on to play number 1 Cornell. And in the next series, St. Lawrence went to Dartmouth to play them. That series went 3 games. And Dartmouth came out with the 2-1 win in that one. In the game 3, of course. And, of course, they split the first 2 games. So Dartmouth comes away with the win there, and they advance on. In the third series, RPI was at Colgate. That, too, went 3 full games. And Colgate came away with a 2-0 win in game 3, so they advance on as well. And then in the final series of last weekend, number 10 Brown was at number 7 Princeton, and that one was a 2-game sweep. Princeton beat Brown, and they advance on to play number 2 Union. So setting up the best of 3 round 2 series, which is taking place this upcoming weekend. You've got number 1 Cornell hosting number 9 Quinnipiac. Number 4 Harvard is hosting number 5 Dartmouth. And number 3 Clarkson, the 10th ranked team in the country, is hosting number 6 Colgate. And then number 2 Union gets to play number 7 Princeton. And then everything advances out from there. So we will find out who the winners of these series gets to play at Lake Placid at Herb Brooks Arena in round 3 in the ECAC semifinal. All right, let's take a look at the Atlantic Hockey Conference. This is another conference featuring East Coast schools. This is probably regarded as the weakest of the 3 Eastern conferences because all these schools are much, much smaller than some of the schools in Hockey East and ECAC. These are generally small private schools. Just like all the other conferences, the winner of the conference earns a NCAA bid, and we want to take a look at this conference as well. Tournament rules in this tournament pretty much are the same as Hockey East and ECAC. You have 4 rounds. You've got a round 1, which is kind of, I don't want to call them play-in games because they're generally not, but these teams have to play an extra round in order to advance to the quarterfinals. So there were 6 teams playing last weekend. Number 6, RIT, hosted number 11, Sacred Heart. Number 7, Robert Morris, hosted number 10, Bentley. And number 8, American International, hosted number 9, Niagara. And again, just like the other conferences, the higher seeded team was the home team, and it was a best of 3. So in the first series, RIT playing Sacred Heart, that one went the distance, and Sacred Heart comes away with the upset win in Game 3 in that series, so they advance on. In the other series, Bentley and Robert Morris, that one too went the distance. Robert Morris comes away with a 3-2 win in Game 3, and Robert Morris advances. And in the final series of last weekend, that one was a 2-game sweep. Number 8, American International, beat Niagara 4-1 and 4-3 to advance on to play. Now let's look ahead to the games that are taking place this weekend. In the quarterfinal, number 1, Mercyhurst will host number 11, Sacred Heart. Number 4, Army will host number 5, Air Force. That should be a good, fun game to watch if you're interested in games between armed services. Number 3, Holy Cross gets to play number 7, Robert Morris. And number 2, Canisius is hosting number 8, American International. And the winners of all these games advance to the semifinal, which is being played at Blue Cross Arena in Rochester, New York. And going back to Hockey East, I don't think I mentioned it, but the winners of these quarterfinal games advance to play the semifinal games at TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. So that's always been the tradition in Hockey East, is to play at TD Garden. All right. Let's move out west. We have the Big Ten tournament going on, and this is probably the strongest conference in college hockey this season, whereas all but 2 of the teams in this conference are currently ranked in the U.S. College Hockey Online poll. And it is a smaller conference, so there is only 7 teams in the conference. But let's take a look at them. So because there's an uneven amount of teams, 7 teams, the first place team gets a bye all the way to the semifinal in this tournament. And that number 1 seed is Notre Dame. So that leaves us with number 2, Ohio State, playing number 7, Michigan State. Number 3, Michigan gets to play number 6, Wisconsin. Number 5, Minnesota is at Penn State. Is the number 4 seed in this tournament. And in this tournament, all the way through, because these are big schools, obviously the Big Ten Conference, these are big schools, they have big arenas, so they don't go to a special arena for the semifinal and final in this conference. They just simply stay at the location of the higher seed. So in this case, the games this weekend, and this tournament hasn't even started yet. It actually gets going this weekend. Penn State is hosting Minnesota, and Michigan is hosting Wisconsin, and Ohio State is hosting Michigan State. Actually, no, I was wrong. That first round has already taken place. So I just got to read my own notes, I guess. So Penn State has advanced to the semifinal. They got a 2-game sweep over Minnesota, so they advance on to play Notre Dame in the semifinal this weekend. And the semifinal is a single-game elimination. There's no series there. And then Michigan advances past Wisconsin in a 2-game sweep. And then Michigan State loses to Ohio State in a 2-game sweep. So in the semifinal, got a great game here. These two schools do not like each other at all. If you're a fan of college football, you know Michigan-Ohio State is considered a very big game in both of those school seasons. And they get to play each other in the semifinal of the Big Ten tournament. So that should be fun. Probably try to watch that game if I can. So Michigan-Ohio State is one semifinal. Penn State at Notre Dame is the other. And with that in mind, that is it on the Big Ten. And then, of course, the champions lay out from there. All right. Let's take a look at the NCHC, which is a college hockey conference out west. A lot of other schools in the West outside the Big Ten are playing in this conference. Some of these are big schools. Some of these are pretty small schools. But anyway, let's take a look. This is the one conference that hasn't gotten going yet. I knew there was a conference that hadn't gotten going yet in their conference tournament, and this is the one. They haven't started. There's exactly 8 teams in the conference, which makes it nice for tournament brackets. It makes a nice, clean bracket. So in this conference, you have St. Cloud State hosting number 8, Miami, Ohio. Number 4 hosting North Dakota hosting number 5, Nebraska, Omaha. Number 3, Minnesota, Duluth is hosting number 6, Western Michigan. And number 2, Denver is hosting number 7, Colorado College. And of course, this round takes place at the location of the higher seed. So the higher seeded school is the home team in this case. And then for the semifinal and the final, those games are being played at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is kind of becoming a tradition for this conference, is to have the XL Energy Center being the host the neutral site for all semifinal and final games in this conference. So yeah, this conference tournament hasn't gotten going yet, but it includes some of the best schools in the country. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that are ranked out of 8 in this conference. So this is also a very powerful conference in the world of college hockey. All right, let's move on to the final conference of the video, and that is the WCHA. This is an older conference. It's undergone some changes in recent years. There's been teams when the Big Ten decided to form their own conference, that kind of threw in the air all the conferences out west, and then everything kind of landed. So Big Ten went off and did their thing, and then after the formation of the Big Ten, we got the formation of the NCHC, which kind of replaced the CCHA, and then the WCHA has always existed, but some of the teams that used to be in CCHA are now in this conference, and so on and so on. So anyway, WCHA conference tournament. Again, we have 10 teams in this conference, and this is the one conference that actually not everybody gets to play in the conference tournament. If you look down here, Lake Superior State and Alaska Anchorage are 2 teams that did not qualify for the conference tournament, so their season is over without any postseason play. So these are the 2 teams in college hockey that did not get to attempt to win out and win the national championship, but neither of these teams were probably going to do that anyway. Alaska Anchorage only has 4 wins all year, and Lake Superior State only has 8 in conference, 10 in their overall. So, and actually there is a third. There's an independent school. There's Arizona State is an independent school that's been playing an independent schedule. They don't belong to any conference, although I believe they're going to be joining one of these two. I can't remember which one. But Arizona State will be joining one of these conferences very shortly, if not next year, the year after, because in the college hockey world, you don't want to be an independent because you essentially don't have a shot at winning or getting into the NCAA tournament unless you happen to be one of the top 10 ranked schools in the country. So playing as an independent is actually a major disadvantage in college hockey because at the very least, if you belong to a conference, you can play your way in by simply getting hot and winning your conference tournament, and you can earn a bid that way. Rarely happens when that a team gets hot. If they've been struggling all year, they generally struggle in the conference tournament for the most part in college hockey. But, you never know. Something could happen. All right, let's get into this last tournament. So we have a number 1 Minnesota State hosting number 8 Alaska, number 4 Bemidji State hosting number 5 Michigan Tech, number 3 Bowling Green hosts number 6 Ferris State, number 2 Northern Michigan hosts number 7 Alabama Huntsville. So those games all took place this weekend, and it's actually kind of good to see Northern Michigan is getting good again, because when I first started following college hockey in high school, Northern Michigan was a powerhouse in the national picture, and then they kind of dropped off for a number of years. It's good to see that they're coming back. Lake Superior State was also good back in those days, and they obviously are not that great these days, but hopefully they'll come back as well. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into it. All right, so in the 1 versus 8 tournament, or in the bracket, that one was pretty much a kind of a blowout, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Minnesota State came away with the 2-0 sweep in that one, so they advance on. Bemidji State versus Michigan Tech, that one too was a sweep, but the games were a lot closer, and Michigan Tech comes away with the 2-game sweep in that one. And in the 3-6 seed, that too went the way of the higher seed, so Bowling Green advances in that one over Ferris State. And then in the final seeding in this one, Northern Michigan playing Alabama Huntsville. That one actually went the distance. It went to a third game, but Northern Michigan came away with the 5-2 win in that one. So all the higher seeds, well, actually Michigan Tech advanced. They upset Bemidji State, but the other 3, the higher seeded teams, advance on, setting up a best of 3 round 2. So this is the one difference in this conference that the other conferences don't have, is that it's a best of 3 in the semifinal, which is taking place this weekend. Minnesota State is hosting Michigan Tech, and the number 2 Northern Michigan is hosting number 3 Bowling Green. So that is the way we go. And looking ahead, the NCAA tournament, the way that is essentially going to work is 6 teams, the 6 conference champions, the 6 teams that end up right here on this line, those 6 teams that end up the tournament champions get automatic bids into the NCAA tournament. So that takes up 6 of these 16 spots. The other 10 are made up of what they call at-large bids. And those 10 schools are decided by a committee which gets together pretty much on the weekend of the conference championship tournaments. So all the conference championship games are taking place. Generally, I think they're all on Saturday night, actually. If you look at it, they're all taking place on the 17th of March. The championship games for all 6 college hockey conferences are taking place on the 17th of March. And they're all one-game, winner-take-all championship games. So all 6 of those take place, and this committee will get together after the games on the 17th, either Saturday night on the 17th or Sunday morning. And I think they announce the tournament the field on the 17th. I could be wrong on that, but I know there's the selection show that takes place, just like college basketball. They have a selection show, and then they announce the tournament field and so on. So 6 of the 10 teams will be determined by the conference tournaments, or 6 of the 16 teams, I'm sorry. And the other 10 are at-large bids that are determined by a committee. But that committee uses it pretty much falls in line with the pairwise rankings, and that's this right here. If I can get this over to my screen. There we go. Taking a look at the pairwise rankings. The committee uses this and almost every time takes the top teams in the pairwise rankings and puts them in at-large bids. So really the committee is almost there just to determine who plays who and where each team goes in the field. But if you look at it, assuming the 6 teams, let's say the 6 teams that win the conference tournament are all outside the top 10 of these rankings. So none of these 10 teams win their conference tournament. So that would mean essentially these 10 teams will get the at-large bids. So see how that works is you take the conference champions out of the picture. They get 6 bids. So the top 10 remaining teams that did not win the conference championship will essentially get into the tournament. So you could have as a little as 10 of these teams or as much as 16 of these teams getting in. So pretty much if you are outside, in most years, if you're below, I would say 13, if you are 14th on down, you're definitely in danger of missing the NCAA tournament, and you will probably need to advance deep into your conference tournament to get yourself back up in the pairwise in order to get those at-large bids. So there are some, these teams that are sitting from 14th through 24, say 25, they are going to have to essentially win their conference tournament to get into the tournament. And definitely everybody from 20 on down has no choice but to win the conference tournament in order to get into the NCAA tournament. But the top 16 on up could potentially win a tournament bid by simply getting picked to be an at-large bid. But a lot will depend on those conference tournaments. So nothing here is decided until the conference tournaments get down to at least their final 2 teams before things become more clear. So basically the way the tournament bracket works in the NCAA tournament is you have 4 regionals, 4 sites. Each site hosts 4 teams. So the sites this year are Bridgeport, Connecticut, Worcester, Mass., Allentown, PA, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So 4 teams go to each site. They play down, and each site will have a tournament. So the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, you have the first round and the second round. So the first round takes place March 23rd and 24th, and then the second round takes place March 24th and 25th. So each team plays back-to-back on back-to-back nights, and it's staggered by a day. So you have, by the end of March 25th, we'll be down to 4 teams. These are your Frozen 4, is what they call it in college hockey. So you got 4 teams are the Frozen 4, and those 4 teams all go to St. Paul, Minnesota. This year is the tournament and at the XL Energy Center where the Minnesota Wild play. Those 4 teams will go to that arena, and that is where we will determine our NCAA national champion. So that is where we stand on college hockey this week. So I know it's a rather long video, but I wanted to give everybody a more detailed update than what we can do on the podcast. The podcast, we can only touch on it for a couple of minutes. So this is a case where I wanted to get a little bit deeper into the college hockey world and give everybody a look at what to expect coming up in the next couple of weeks. So with that, we'll go ahead and end it. And again, if you like this video, click like. If you want to see more of this type of content, go ahead and hit subscribe. And if you learned anything, go ahead and click like as well. And of course, if you want to comment on any of this, feel free to comment. I always like to engage with the viewers, so feel free to comment in the comments below. Have anything to do with college hockey, right down there is where you want to do that. So until the next one, we'll catch you later.